Here, you want to say something? I just want to make sure the audio is going through.
Can you hear me okay? Testing, testing, etc., etc.
I'm gonna turn you up a little bit. Here, start
Okay.
talking some more.
Yeah, yeah. I can move my microphone a little closer to me.
Oh no, I had the audio on my end
That better?
so low.
Okay.
How does he sound on your guys' end? You should sound fine.
Everybody here?
I just had you quite low on audio, so you should sound fine now.
Okay.
But let me see what they're saying in the chat.
I've got it over my shoulder over here so I can see the live.
All right, they say you sound great, but a little faint. I'll turn you up just a little bit more on their end. So you should sound pretty loud now at this point. But all right, so we'll just jump right into things. Welcome, thank you guys all for stopping by. As always, my name is Eli with Pokémon USA. If you don't already know, Tuesdays and Thursdays are Q&A days. Traditionally, they're at around 12 to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time, but we have a special guest who I will introduce here in a second. So we're going to do it a little bit earlier to accommodate for him. But without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself now, Chase?
Yeah, I'm Chase. I'm with my business is called TCG Bulk Kings, and basically I've gone all in on um, getting good at processing and selling bulk. I really want to, just be really good at turning all that stuff that people think is trash into, pennies and dimes and quarters that add up. So.
Cool. And so for today's video, every so often I do have a guest on, and usually it's you guys just asking me Q&As, but how we're going to be sectioning this is I'm going to be asking Chase some questions for more than likely the first hour of the stream or so, give or take, and then we will section off the last portion of the Q&A for you guys to ask him or ask me any questions. Or if we see a really good question while he's being interviewed, we can always interject and do that. But that's kind of going to be the format for today. But without further ado, let's just, like you just briefly said, bulk. So that's kind of your MO. That's obviously your YouTube channel, and I'll drop a link down in the description for people to join. But as the Bulk King, what kind of got you into what you're doing right now?
So I started out, I played Magic in high school, got out when I didn't have any money in college, ended up dumping off my collection for pennies and was sad about it for 10 years. Got back into Magic in about 2015. I started a new job, and everybody there got me back into Magic. And I started, I didn't like buying sealed product, like 2 packs at a time and getting 2 sad packs and being sad, right? And I found people who were willing to sell, back in high school, I picked up a couple of collections and I had so much fun picking through it and sorting through it. And I would spend hours just organizing the cards. And that's what was fun for me, that and building decks out of stuff that people wouldn't expect. Right. So then I started looking around for collections to buy when I got back into it, and ended up, finding articles on what to do with that to kind of make it break even or pay for itself or whatever. So I got into buying collections and then picking stuff to sell to buy lists and keeping the rest, right? But then that got too big and I had too much stuff and I wasn't going through it all. And I'm like, there's these companies that buy bulk. They're way bigger than me, that buy bulk every day, 50,000, 100,000, 500,000 cards a month. What are they doing with it? nobody was talking about it. So I'm like, well, there's these companies with 50,000 plus transactions on TCG Player selling cards for 5 cents. How are they making money on it? They obviously are. They wouldn't be. They got to be making money somehow. Somehow these things linked up for me, and I'm like, okay, I got to figure out a way to take these bulk cards I'm buying for $4 per thousand and turn them into stuff I can sell for a nickel and a dime and make profit. That's what got me going on it. Not wanting to throw away stuff I couldn't sell to a buy list.
So what would you personally say, like, well, actually, let me rephrase the question I was going to ask. How many different sectors of just trading card games are you just sorting and selling for bulk? And if, let's say, there's only a certain limit of how many you're in, why is that? And do you plan on expanding?
Sure. Like I said, I started in Magic. Last year and a half ago, I got into Pokemon and Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood got big, and people were opening lots of stuff, chasing cold foils, and it just got big enough that there were enough players. It seemed like there was a market that supported, 10 and 15 cent commons. And Pokemon, we all know how big Pokemon is. It's the second biggest one. I'm also in Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit. I have maybe like 2,000 Yu-Gi-Oh cards listed right now. I just haven't gotten a whole lot of Yu-Gi-Oh sent my way. Um, but yeah, I'm big in on Magic, Pokemon, and Flesh and Blood. And then I have a little bit of other stuff like Vice Schwartz and a few other things. I can expand into them at some point, but a lot of them sell a lot slower on the bulk end. So it's a lot harder to justify, like, I'm gonna spend $300 on Vice Schwartz bulk and sell, 5 cards a week for 15 cents a piece.
So is that something for you then when you're saying, selling volume? Predominantly, is this something that you're selling on just TCG Player? And then where is it exactly that you're going and buying all of your bulk?
Yeah, so I do predominantly sell on TCG Player. Sometimes I do sell bulk lots, and that's usually people who reach out to me, or have like a Ko-fi shop. Um, but I don't have like my own like shop website where you can go and click and put in your card number and buy stuff from me. Um, Maybe at some point in the nearest future. But as far as how I acquire it, I started out acquiring it through mainly Craigslist and Facebook. Craigslist is kind of fallen off the map as far as a good place to get stuff like that. I've tried picking up like bulk lots on like eBay, but usually it's super picked through and condition is not what it's always stated, and it's not worth trying to dispute it. So and it's usually overpriced. It's hard to get it at a bulk rate. So most of the time now, how I get my bulk is I have my own personal website with and I'm tracking like everyone else's bulk rates as like a public thing. So I've run out of words, like a public service to try and make everybody aware of exactly where the bulk market is, and I try and just peg my prices to that, and people reach out to me through my website and sell me bulk. I also have a couple of local people who, when they like to buy collections and sell the higher end stuff, and they don't want to deal with selling bulk. They don't want to deal with the organization and the time and all that, and they sell their bulk off to me. So it's mostly just making connections, and then having a way for people to reach out to me directly, so that they would be people I wouldn't normally meet.
What would you kind of say is your bread and butter in terms of what whether it be a specific way in which you're selling the cards or whether it be just a specific uh, card game, and by card game, I'm distinguishing between, Magic, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon. What would you say is kind of just, has always worked best for you profitability wise?
Definitely, I would say my bread and butter has been Magic. I've been in it longer. I know it better. It doesn't. I mean, the way I'm doing it, you don't have to know a whole lot about it. You don't have to memorize every single card, but um, just there's more people buying them, right? It's just a bigger demand, so they sell through faster. Um, Pokemon definitely, I'd say probably per amount of cards that I have listed, Pokemon has brought the most profit, like equivalent to the effort that I've put into it, if that makes any sense. Like I've had less Pokemon listed than Magic ever, and they probably get pretty close now as far as the amount of sales between the two for me, um, dollar wise.
And
And then Flesh and Blood is a not so distant third, but mostly because the prices are a little bit higher. But they sell a little bit slower, and they're not on the direct program, so they don't sell as fast that way either.
so another follow-up question with that. So one, you obviously just briefly mentioned that you do the direct program. How, in your personal experience, has it been doing that? And then two, my second question is this something more or less that you're doing as kind of like a side hobby, or is this one of your full-time gigs, or eventually you're hoping to make it a full-time gig?
Okay, so yeah, that's two questions there. As far as direct, I'm really pleased with direct. There are it's a different fee structure, but it lets you get profit out of those 5 cent cards a lot more easily. Like if you sell a 5 cent card um on your own, you're not gonna get, if you, and you have to ship it, you're not gonna get you're gonna lose 15 cents, right? On a 5 cent order, you're gonna spend 15 cents over what you get paid out just to get it into the customer's hands. Three direct, you're gonna make a penny. They're gonna take two, TCG players gonna take 2 cents for the fee. It's gonna cost you about a penny to ship it in with all your other direct cards, and it costs you a penny to buy the card. So I mean, and that's averages, but still, you can make profit on that 5 cent card. And if you sell 500 cards in a day, that adds up. That's a few dollars, and it's not, a huge amount of effort once you get good at the organizing to get it so that it's worthwhile.
Daddy,
I can't talk right now, okay?
turn what on up?
Not right now, okay, sweetheart? Is it an emergency?
No.
Okay, I need to finish this call, okay? Sorry about that. I'm watching my daughter right now.
You're all good, man.
As far as the job, this has been something I've been building up into a full-time working job for a couple of years. COVID wasn't kind. I was working in a hospital as a receptionist, and they dramatically changed my job when COVID happened, or a few months after COVID happened, because I was doing a whole bunch of clerical stuff, and as well as being a receptionist. And then they told me, no, you have to stand out here where the patients are coming in and take their temperatures, and that's your job now. And I was living with my dad. He's immunocompromised. I can't really do that, and I had another job lined up that ghosted me. I guess they couldn't hire anybody else all of a sudden, and I was already doing this as a side job, so I've been building up into it being a full-time job.
So then, as far as it goes right now, what do you think is the next step or direction for you to take in order to make it a full-time gig?
I I mean, it essentially it is. I'm just not quite getting all of the full-time payment out of it right now because I'm reinvesting so much back into it. Right. I don't need inventory. Obviously, I've got plenty of cards I'm sitting on. I just need to be able to have time to sit down and really go through it. I'm going to be coming out with a more detailed process before too long about exactly how I'm plowing through everything. And I'm finishing paying off a big debt that I got a couple of years ago. That's finishing up like in the next couple of weeks, and so that will able to plow back into it and should be able to jump it right up into much more revenue status. I hope those words made sense. I kind of babbled there a little bit.
No, that totally made sense. So in terms of overall business growth, from your own personal experience or what you presume, either or, what would you say, how would you define in terms of what you think the scalability of the business is? And then if there are any sort of obstacles, let's say you find it fairly easy. And if so, are there any obstacles, or what obstacles are there you find it to be the hardest for scaling?
Yeah, so for scaling, there are two things for scaling that really well, three if you count the obvious one, which is money. You got to have some money, right? You got to be able to buy the stuff. You got to be able to make it into cash that flows so you can go back and buy more stuff, or it'll just fizzle out. Like you'll go through your personal collection, and you won't have enough money right away to be able to pick up some more stuff and build that momentum. That's the obvious one. The slightly less obvious one is time, because bulk is it's a grind. It's literally, you're sitting at the machine and you're turning a crank and it spits out nickels at you, right? You got to figure out a good way to get that machine working as efficiently as possible so that you're not spending 15 hours a day, spend 15 hours a day after that to ship orders. That's not sustainable. So time is a big factor. The biggest surprise for me as a constraint for scalability was space. Like if you see some of my older videos, they're in a small third bedroom, right? That's maybe 1/6 the size of this office. It was a couple hundred square feet, and if you get 250,000 flesh and blood cards, all of a sudden it gets pretty cramped. And being able to spread out and have multiple tabletops that you can lay out, this is where I'm going to ship, and this is where all my shipping stuff is, and then this is where I'm going to sort, and this is where all the stuff I need for that is, and not have to pack it all back up and spend the time to basically like do changeover in a factory where you close down all your machines and switch them out with different machines and put up new machines. Yeah, that getting the extra space in the room to breathe and not feel like I had to do that constantly was a big change for me to get scaled to this point.
So at the moment, are you currently using a machine? And if so, what is its overall efficiency rate?
I am not currently using a sorting machine, no.
Do you plan to,
I'm
or what's
trying to develop I'm actually not super convinced on how it would help me particularly in my business, because it takes care of one of like the 6 or 7 steps that's required to go from a box of raw bulk to listed and sorted inventory product that's sorted into with the rest of your inventory, right? And I would love to get up close with one for a day. I may have to go check out Mason's shop, and he's not too far from me in Kentucky, and see if I can just watch him use his Roka for a day, just to see what that looks like. But I feel like if I had the machine here, I would, it would do the sorting part for me and make the CSV for me, but I'm going to have to go back and change all the pricing or whatever. I have to check it for errors. I'm going to have to then spend the time to sort it into the existing inventory, because if I get another 1,000 brilliant stars inventory that's alphabetized, well, I got to mix it into my other 4,000 brilliant stars inventory that's alphabetized, so that that's organized, and that's going to take an amount of time. So I haven't worked out how to make that efficient with the machine, and it's a big capital expense up front that's not easy for me to absorb. So if I'm not like 100% on board with it, I can't convince myself to spend the money. So I'm trying to make my process of human sorting as quick and as efficient as possible, and I think I'm not too far off from the level that the machine's at.
What would you say is your most least efficient side of things? Obviously, when it comes to shipping, selling, sorting, listing, all those things, what would you say your least efficient side of things is, and why do you think that is? And how in the future do you plan to change that development?
Yeah.
We're running out of time. Well, in 10 minutes, I'll just send you a new link, and then it'll re-invite you.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No problem. So least efficient step, I would say, is conditioning. You've got, 1,000 raw cards in front of you, and you have to go through them. It's definitely the conditioning, because you have to spend 2, 3, 5 seconds on each card with the light shining on it just right to check the surface for scratches or wear or dings, and check the edge wear and all that. That is the most mind-numbing part for me. Like I can sort for days. I can alphabetize, I can list, I can, that's all fine for me. But conditioning, where I'm sitting there looking at the card and I have to wiggle it, and it makes my eyes go wiggly after a while. And I haven't really come up with a good way to speed it up. It's got to be done. They've all got to be looked at. The best thing I've done is to mix that conditioning step in with a sorting step, so that it's doing two processes at once. And they kind of take some of the time out of each other, like some of the shared piece of, like, the picking it up, you're only picking it up once. The looking at it, you can condition, you can check the surface and the set at the same time, and that kind of thing. So it doesn't really make it that particular part more efficient, but it overlaps some of it with another step to increase the efficiency that way.
So for your side of selling and accepting, do you accept all sorts of conditions and more or less cards, like, for example, with Pokemon standard versus, legacy expanded? Or are you only selecting certain types of cards, conditions, and set formats?
I try only to sell near mint cards. All my listings on TCG Player, barring a couple of very vintage Pokemon cards and some very vintage, relatively vintage Magic cards, are near mint, and those were from experiments where I was trying to figure out a good way to do light play and moderately played on some of that older stuff. But I tried through TCG Player, at least, to only sell near mint cards. It's just simpler that way. I can just do condition as a pass fail. It's near mint or it's not. I'm not trying to figure out how not good condition it is, and then dispute that later with the customer. I have had way fewer customer service emails about condition since I stopped selling anything below near mint. Like, if someone gets a card they think is moderately played and you listed it as light played, I don't care if it's a 10-cent card, they're going to email you about it and complain about it. But if you say it's near mint and you're really harsh and you only sell cards that could qualify as near mint, I don't think I've had anybody complain about condition in over a year. And the one that did, it was a messed up package. So other than that, no, I'm not really concerned about sets or anything like that. I don't try and pick and choose different sets. I want it to be as open and liquid as possible. Like I want to be like, if you have bulk from this game, this is the price for it, and not try and constrain it that way. Because if I'm doing my job right, my price is correct, then I'm going to make money on that 1,000 cards. If you sell me 1,000, I don't know, trap inches or whatever, if that's the box that I get from you in the mail, it's 1,000 copies of trap inch. I'm going to eventually, make a penny on each of those trap inches. It may take 5 years. It may be that I have to bulk them out to somebody else later, but I'm still getting that same bulk rate back. It is not much risk as long as you're buying at the bulk rate, unless you think the bulk rates are too high, like they were a couple of years ago.
So what would you say then in terms, and we'll just say Pokemon since this is more of a Pokemon channel. What would you say your best... Oh, well, actually, first question is predominantly, are you accepting all types of card rarities? And if you are, what would you say the specific card rarity, so like common, uncommon versus rare, holo, reverse holo, if you want to specify with that, which do you think brings the greatest percentage yield?
I do typically accept all card rarities. Like I said, I've been paying off a debt the last couple of months, so I haven't been buying very much. I've actually down to like 10,000 raw Pokemon bulk left to list. That's all I've got left. I've got lots of Magic and Flesh and Blood I haven't gone through yet, but I'm almost out of Pokemon. But as far as like which rarity brings the best yield, at least for me in my experience, when you're buying in bulk, for me it's been reverse holo commons and uncommons, because like a lot of the non-holos are 2, 3, 4 cents. I don't even sell them that cheap. I price them at 5 cents and wait for it to come back up to 5 cents, right? But the reverse holos, they're always 9, 10 cents as a floor, even on some of the newest sets. And I haven't so the multiplier is like a baseline multiplier is like 2 or 3 times, but there's so many out there. It's like 10 times, 15 times the price of the regular non-holo version, that you wouldn't expect, just because it's a relatively popular Pokemon, like 4th or 5th tier in popularity Pokemon. So instead, suddenly this particular artwork, it's 35 cents for this reverse holo you paid 4 cents for, right? Or if it's even just a base common like Pikachu or Snorlax or something like that, they can get up to 50-60 cents. Reverse holo trainers are, a lot of people just collect reverse holo trainers, so they always have a little bit of a premium that way as well. So it's just a lot more. Currently there's a lot more meat on the bone on average in reverse holos. I think, like, everyone wants to get $1 for each of their bulk V's, right? And the market price is like 30 to 40 cents for them right now, but the people who buy them at that are hoping to sell them for $1 and likely selling them at 80 cents, and they're breaking even on them, right? As far as with the shipping and all that. So, but on reverse holos, you're getting for a 1,000 count row for $40, and you're gonna turn that into $150. That's not a guarantee or anything. It depends on what's in there, but that's not uncommon for me.
One of the things I've heard you bring up a couple of times is you say you have specific cards that are priced, a penny, 2 pennies, 3 pennies, but it always seems to sell at the minimum for yourself 5 cents. My first question is for you, Why that 5 cent mark? And then to follow it up with that, presumably, what would you say your kind of ratio of back stock inventory is that you're kind of waiting to sell until it hits that 5 cent point versus actively selling? Like, what's your liquidity rate, more or less?
Oh, sure, like a sell-through rate kind of thing, right? That's a little hard to say because I don't have that particular thing measured. Like it's definitely there's definitely more in Magic that's just below that floor that I set that's just waiting to sell. But they do sell, ones, twos, fours every now and then. So um I'm trying to think how to answer it. So the reason I picked that floor of 5 cents is that it has to do with direct fees and stuff like that. If you make a sale under $3 in the direct program, then the fee from TCG player is 50%. Unless it's over a certain number of cards in the package. So if you sell a card for 10 cents, TCG player takes 5 cents. That's their fee. And that sounds like a huge percentage.
Oh no, he got kicked from it. Uh-oh, man down. All right, give me one quick second, guys. We're gonna we're gonna re-invite him back. Sorry about that, guys. Literally cuts him off immediately. I didn't see it was doing the countdown timer. I literally just I got so caught up in listening to everything he was saying, and it straight up just cut him off there. He was on a roll there. I was like, oh crap. It all of a sudden just cut us off. One of these days I'm gonna pay for Zoom Premium, but when you literally just use it like once in a blue moon. Sorry about that. You literally got cut off because the Zoom trial ended. Sorry about that, but yeah, I'm how do I want to say this? I do probably guest lives, like I want to say one in every couple of months. So for me, I'm like, do I really want to pay monthly for the premium if I don't use it enough? So I still think it's something I should look into just to prevent that from happening, because you were on a roll there. So but anyway, you were talking about 5 cents being your low point, explaining the fee structures of direct.
Right. So yeah, the way I buy bulk, it's by the thousand. So Magic bulk is what I was buying primarily to start with, and it's $4 to $5 per thousand, so which is half a cent per card. And so I was looking at 5 cents. TCG player is going to take 2 cents. It's going to cost me, or it cost me a half a penny for the card. So I'm making 2.5 cents before I have to ship off my big shipment to TCG player, right? Which comes out usually to about a penny per card. Sometimes a little bit less. Just depends on how many cards are in the package. But I can ship off 3,000 cards for $15 or $20 pretty easily. And so I guarantee that if I make a sale through direct, I'm getting at least a penny or almost 2 cents at the minimum profit off of that sale. So if I sell it for 2 cents, I'm only going to get paid out a penny, and I'm already out half a penny for the card, and then another penny to ship it, and I'm losing money. So because of that, I lose a little bit sometimes on those singular orders that come down that aren't in direct for whatever, like if they're out of them at the direct warehouse or whatever. I end up losing a few cents, but it's more than made up for by the 75 cards that sold before it that were indirect, right? So I'm not too worried about that.
What would you say that your ratio is of general like shipments or sales at this point is direct compared to just straight envelopes? If you were to kind of
Sure.
put a number on it.
Right now it's probably at about 20%. And that's uh I like when I first started, like when I first turned on direct and I got 500 sales that next day. It was definitely like I had 10 packages to ship myself and 490 direct sales that day. But now it's settled down because a lot of that higher demand stuff sold through last year, and I'm still having to replenish it constantly. And so I make 50 to 100 transactions per day on average, and I have to ship 10 to 20 a day myself. So it's like 15 to 20% of them are orders that I have to ship off. And you'll notice pattern also because some of that is like flesh and blood sales too, right? All of those aren't indirect. So if I cut those out, it's it's more like 10%. And you'll notice patterns. It'll be like suddenly I have 9 orders with this one card in it because they ran out of that card at the warehouse, and so I'm responsible to ship it myself, which it's fine. It happens.
What do you
Or I'll
mean?
list 75 crushing hammers, and they only had 25 left at the warehouse, and all of them sold.
What do you mean by that when you keep saying they only have X amount at the warehouse?
Oh, sure. So the way the direct program works, it's kind of like a forward distribution center for all of us individual TCG players in the program. So you'll sign up for direct, and they have a big warehouse at TCG Player in New York, and all your prices are the same as you, however you want to set them up, but you have the little direct tag on TCG Player. And if someone buys it from you and it's indirect, they ship it out for you from their warehouse. And then every week or two, you get an invoice saying, this is what you have to send back to us to replenish all the stuff we sent out for you. So say I had listed 100 crushing hammers, right? And I have them priced, yeah, I don't remember what I had them priced at last, like 16 cents a piece or something like that. Good price. People buying them up. And TCG Player only has 50 left in their warehouse. If I sell 55 of them, I'm responsible for whatever to ship out directly to the customer, whatever they couldn't send, because I made that sale, just like if I wasn't in the direct program at all. So, if I sell, those last 5, I get, an order on my TCG Player seller page. It says, you have to send this off. This is their order. This, you have to send that off. This is their order, and all that. Sure. Yeah. So basically, yeah, I sit on it, and it still
Well, actually,
trickles
hold on
out.
for 1 second. Hold on for 1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had lost my audio there. I accidentally asked you the question, but it was muted on my end. So sorry about that.
Oh.
So I just asked Digi's question, which was about what does he do with the bulk that he's not. What does he do with the bulk he's not selling, more or less at the moment? Sorry, but you can answer the question now.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I have it listed. I list it as I dig through it. And yeah, there's stuff that sits for a while, but it still trickles out slowly in sales. Um, and I get surprised every day with stuff that sells at 5 cents. Like I have an order I have to pack here in a little bit for 314 fire energies from Sword and Shield base set that somebody's paid 5 cents per card for. Didn't ever expect to get an order like that, but I had a bunch of energy one day. It was ready to list and it was really easy to list. So I just did it. And, you know, I sell those in like 5, 10 at a time, usually thrown in with a bunch of other cards people are getting for a deck or something. But they wanted 314. So the way I see it is that stuff is what I call like long tail inventory. If you've heard of the theory or read the book The Long Tail, it's the demand is like if you make a chart of the demand of every card, at the top of the chart is going to be, or at the very first card, the most popular best selling card is at the top of as the first card in the chart, and that's going to be, you know, your high end, your Umbreon alt arts or whatever's going on right now. And way back at the other end of the chart, way over here is the least popular card ever, right? Nobody buys it. And it's not, there is no card that nobody buys. The demand is there for every single card. There's set collectors, there's people who have favorite Pokemon that you would never think is anybody's favorite Pokemon. Same in Magic, same in every card game, you know. Um, and the same thing for sports and comics. You know, collectibles, anything that's collectible, the demand is there for every single thing, and you just got to find that price that they'll buy it at. And sure, if you have cards from, I have 10,000 Throne of Eldraine cards that still haven't sold because I have them in 200 card chunks of just the less popular cards in the set. But every couple of weeks, I get an order for 65 of this one, or I get an order for 2 of each from every card in the set. They eventually sell. So it's actually, it would be detrimental to me unless I need the cash to bulk them out, which I can always do because somebody's always buying bulk. Then I can, then I, it would be a detriment to me to pull them out because I can eventually sell them at the retail price. Someone will buy them. Hold on just a second. Yes.
Are these permanent markers?
No. Sorry.
All good. Okay, so here's an interesting question then for you. So one of the biggest issues that you said that you didn't realize, obviously it's kind of more or less been solved now, but it's probably still an issue, was space, right? How much would you say, right? If, let's say, for example, and this is just an example, let's say you've got around 500,000 bulk cards of Pokemon product that you were accepting. And your goal was obviously to churn those cards as efficiently as possible to then reinvest that inventory into buying more and more and continue to grow, right? At what point do you feel, of course, if not, then obviously then that's never a concern of scaling, but do you ever feel as if there's a point where as you continuously churn, there's an off balance ratio of cards that don't sell compared to sell? Like how much more or less of those cards that you're consuming, and you can use this in any of the other card games, but I just use Pokemon for example, would you say that ratio is of cards that you're like, all right, sure, I'm getting like 70% of my cards are like a penny, 2 penny, and then the rest are like 10 plus cents pennies, and then with that scalability, as that ratio stays that way and you continue to scale, eventually it almost feels like you're sitting on, at that point, just a bunch of 1 cent, 2 cent cards that you're almost waiting to hit that kind of point of 5 cents before you're able to free up your liquidity. Is that something that you ever feel like you run into an issue? And if yes, what is the solution? Or if not, why is that?
Sure. Yeah, I haven't run into that myself. Like I said, if I'm buying at an appropriate price, then I can always turn it around to another buyer. Like even with the crisis in the last a few months ago or a couple months ago, where like the bulk Pokemon prices crashed and almost no one was buying. Like unless I really needed the money right then, I could just wait 3 months until the stores start buying again, right? um if I get into that big of an issue, like I'm not going to be concerned that my money is tied up. It's still pretty liquid, right? If I get someone dumps 100,000 you know, I don't know, hidden fates bulk on me or whatever, it's super slow to sell, right? It's because it's only 50 cards. They're real basic Pokemon, you know, it's real chill. Someone dumps that much on me, like I can dump it back out into a different seller if I have to. And in the meantime, as I'm digging through it, people are actually still buying it at 5 cents because, you know, the ones that are a penny or 2 pennies, they may have to buy it from 50 different buyers to get 100 copies of it if they're looking for 100 copies of it. You know, I get orders from commercial customers that are they buy lots of 100 of 10 different cards and they build decks out of them and resell the decks. They I get that a lot more in Magic than in Pokemon, but that happens in Pokemon too. So like I said, somebody about 300 energies from me. I imagine they're either doing a craft project or they're building decks for somebody or building decks to resell. So like I haven't run into it too much. Like I said, I've got a lot of like Throne of Eldraine for Magic. I'll get an order every couple of weeks for 50 copies of this card that I haven't sold any of in 3 months. And it's either the prices have fluctuated so that my price is now right, or else the person came along that needed that quantity and couldn't get them from anybody else. Either way, I'm happy. And I feel secure that I can just, if I have to, if I need the space, or if I just feel like I'm sitting on 100,000 1 cent cards that are never going to get to 5 cents, that I can ship them off to somebody for a penny a card.
What would you kind of say is, what do you think the reason is, right? So let's say that fire energy example that you gave us. Obviously, someone bought an exorbitantly large amount from you, and that was very surprising. I presume that was surprising, and I could be wrong. I have no clue what the market value is of the card for fire energies, but I presume it's probably not at that 5 cent point. Would I be correct in that? So why do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's probably at, you know, definitely when I listed them, they were, you know, 1 cent, 2 cents.
So then why do you think that individual, rather than going and buying at a lower market price, presumably that is available, and instead chose to pay that premium of 5 cents to buy them from you instead?
I haven't, like I said, I just saw the order today, so I haven't investigated that particular one. But in the past, it's been uh sometimes it's that nobody at a cheaper price has the quantity, right? If that person needs 300 fire energies and everyone priced below me has no more than 10 or 20 or 50, even, they either are having to buy from multiple buyers and having to get multiple packages and pay multiple shipping charges, or else they are unable to get that quantity because that quantity doesn't exist lower than my price on TCG Player at that time. And sometimes it's that it's honestly, I think it's my feedback, my 100% feedback on 30,000 sales helps. It helps less on TCG Player than it does on like Amazon or eBay, but it's still there. It still represents something. So I feel like that's a little bit of it. I'm not egotistical enough to think that my brand awareness is that present in the market that people are buying from me just because I'm TCG Vault Kings. But I do get some repeat customers that buy large quantities of cards. So that I know that is the case for some people, but not for most people.
In terms of your overall current inventory that you have, right, on both live and maybe you have unsorted as well, how quickly, because you're obviously doing this all manually, you're not using any sort of Roka or sorting machine or anything.
I don't have any other employees or anything, so it's all me.
How quickly are you able to add new inventory, would you say, manually for yourself? And what does that kind of look like in terms of your overall inventory you have on your live site versus not on your live site? And what is your kind of, card push out rate that you're able to do every single TCG Direct cycle?
Sure. So to answer the last part first, because it's quick. For direct, I ship to them. Just depends on how expensive the cards are that I sell. It's 1,000 to 3,000 cards at a time. Go sit down for me.
And what does a time look like for you? Like,
Right. I'm sorry.
oh, no, you're all good. What does a time look like for you? Is that like 3 days, a week, or how long is that? 1,000 to a couple thousand?
1 to 2 weeks. It depends. If I list if I get a good batch of cards that I list, that are all 20, 30, 40 cent cards, the dollar amount adds up faster than the time, because direct will send you an invoice every 2 weeks unless you hit $300 before you get to the 2 weeks in revenue. So if I happen to list a bunch of higher priced cards, you can open it yourself, sweetheart.
I can't.
You have.
I've never done it.
Here you go.
Cyrus can open it.
Okay. So if I list a bunch of cards that are higher end, and by higher end I mean 30 cents to $1 for me for the most part. If I get a bunch of that kind of stuff, it fills up a lot faster than the $300 fills up a lot faster than the 2 weeks. But other than that, it's every 2 weeks because they'll automatically send me an invoice every 2 weeks. As far as how fast I get cards listed, I haven't really ever approached an ideal week, but if I have an ideal several days in a row, I can do a couple thousand cards a day and not feel like I'm beating myself up to get it done. Around shipping and picking up kids from school and making dinner and living my life and all that. I can easily do a couple thousand cards per day. That's from completely raw bulk to set sorted to alphabetized to listed to added into sorted into the existing inventory every step along the way. And so ideally 10,000 a week, and that's in it's a couple 3 hours a day. It's not a 8 hours a day thing. If I were doing it 8 hours a day, I'd probably go blind, but also I could definitely move that up to 20 or 30,000 a week easily.
What would you say your current active live inventory is on TCG Player right now?
It's just over 160,000 cards. I think it's right at around 9,000 unique cards, unique listings. So 9,000 different cards and about 160,000 units total.
What would you say your average price, or what would you say your average inventory amount that you're usually sitting on?
Sitting on as in not listed yet?
No, sitting
Or-
on is in, like, you're saying you're at around 160,000 right now, right? What would you
Sure.
say, like, is that something that you're usually sitting on realistically 100,000, but you've got 60,000 on your inventory that's just happened to be sitting more than it usually does? Or do you usually have 250,000, but you have 160,000 right now because you just happen to sell faster this week? Like, what would you say your average inventory live listed is?
Sure. I can say that unless I go a long period where I'm not listing, I am listing faster than I sell. So it's other than like dips where I've tapered off what I'm adding in, it's constantly been growing. So this time last year, I was at I think 80 or 90,000 cards live on inventory. And it's just been, it goes up and up and up. I've definitely list more than I sell. So there's definitely some of it that has been sitting around, like I said, but a lot of it sells the same day I list it too. So like I said, if I get 100 copies of a current common tournament staple and listed at a good price, it's going to sell that day or the next day. And some of that other stuff that was in the same set is definitely longer tail inventory that will take a couple of years to sell, but it eventually sells.
So obviously, with you saying that it's constantly scaling, and you're saying that you're not having an issue with general liquidity as it scales, right? You're continuously growing your inventory. It was 80, 90, now it's 160, and you never feel like you have an issue with not selling, because if you're really that desperate to sell those cards you're buying for a penny back at a penny and a penny and a half somewhere else, you can always go do that, right?
Right.
With that, what would you say your overall average rate of return for the majority of just you can say Magic, you can say Pokemon, or just your cards overall? Like, for example, let's say you buy a Scoop Up Net, right? You're buying it for a penny. It's like a $4 card. Like, that's a 40,000% rate of return. But obviously,
Right.
you're not every card is going to be factored in that. So it's kind of hard for you to, I understand, give that exact number. But with you being able to continuously grow that inventory and have it be a liquid, I would still imagine you're still sitting at a point where there's a lot of those cards that are helping kind of drag around that, 1 to 2 penny cards that you have sitting in the back.
Right. So the way I try and think about that is like I look at my average ticket or average card sale price. So a quick and dirty way to do it when you get is just to look at get a pull sheet for your whole month or whatever. Click on all your orders for a whole month and generate a pull sheet and just find out how many cards that you've sold that you had to pick in that month or whatever, and compare that with your revenue for that month, and just divide it, and you can get an average price of what each card sold at, and use that number as like your metric of how much your average profit per card is based on how much you paid for your bulk. So if you sell 5,000 cards in a month and you make this many dollars, in a month or whatever, then you can go back and look at, if it's $5,000, 5,000 cards, say it's all Pokemon, so I spent $100 on it, right? Not counting all the other cards I bought, but just the cards that I've sold, I spent $100 on it. I made, $1,200 on it. My average card sale price hovers between like 11 and 12 cents just across all my games. I don't have it separated out by product line or anything like that. But the average, and that includes like shipping credits and stuff, like because TCG Player passes them along to me, the customer has to pay for them. So they buy a 10-cent card that I have to ship out, they paid $1.09 for it, you know. Anyway, once you figure like your fees and stuff out of that, the just the difference between the cost of the card and the price that you sell it at is usually really good, with plenty of room to absorb those fees and stuff like that. I hope that answered your question.
No, I think that definitely greatly answers your question. So from the sounds of it, you're definitely at a point where you're not really worried about that backstock inventory because of those cards that you do have that are moving. The general
they more than pay for the other cards, absolutely. And then when you do get a big, sale of that longer tail inventory, then it's basically like, oh, I got paid to keep these cards, and I'm getting paid to sell these cards. So
what would you say for yourself personally at this point? Because obviously it's an ever-growing business, 90,000 to 160,000. What would you say your kind of biggest... Do you think at some point you're going to have a kind of stall in your overall general like efficiency, and if so, what do you have any kind of plans for that? Because obviously you yourself can only sort so many cards a day efficiently and list so many cards a day and then sell so many cards a day. So I presume you probably have a point in mind where you're like, all right, I can do this up until this point. And what do you think that kind of is, and what do you think your solution would be for that?
I don't know if I've nailed down a specific point that is like, this is the point which I need to do this to increase the time efficiency or whatever. Basically sometime in the next year, I'm looking at maybe getting a couple of part-time employees to help take care of some of the processes, just because it's going to get bigger than I can handle, like you said, right? There's only a certain number of hours in the day, so the next step is to have more people to double up on the hours, right? So I'm hoping in the next year, like I've got this space this year, because the bedroom was the biggest constraint at the time, and I've grown since then, since I got that, and I need more people to put effort into it. So I'm looking to get a couple of people at least steadily on in the next year. That's why I'm trying to really solidly nail down my practices right now, so that I don't wishy-washy train somebody and have them not be as efficient as they possibly could. I want to know exactly what it is that I need them to do, so I can exactly describe that to the person that I'll be training to take over that for me, because I need them to do it the right way.
Right, especially too if you're having someone go through and whether it be shipping out envelopes or sorting cards or whatever that kind of looks like, you're now paying them to do something. If they aren't hitting those efficiency rates, then that's just money you're losing. So you definitely, there's an emphasis on making sure that what they're being trained to do is going to follow your efficiency methods.
Yeah. I've been reading a lot about streamlining and like lean processes and stuff from the manufacturing world and stuff lately, to try and, because it feels a lot like working an assembly line, right? There's a whole lot of repetitive tasks that that I have to do, that can be cut down in a lot of ways by not having to go across the room to get this pack of penny sleeves for the foils that I run across and whatnot, that kind of stuff. Really, tighten up and lean up the processes, so that it's real easy to sit somebody down and say, here's your cards, you sort them and you put them in here for the next person to do the next step.
What is your long-term goal for yourself as a business?
Like pie in the sky goal is like I want to be like Safari Zone, but for every game, I want I want people to recognize that all these the cards in between the good cards are not trash. They're playable, they're useful, they have value. Every card has value. I don't want to just stick to trading card games. I'm eventually going to move into sports cards and do the same thing with them, and other collectibles that make sense as well. TCG Player just rolled out comics sales, and so I'm exploring that as something that can potentially be done as well, because comics have every comic book needs to be read, right, by somebody. So ultimately, I want to help, like, be a force that helps, like, solidify the bottom end of the market so that it can't just drop out, right, for a lot of things. Like, I like the Pokemon bulk thing that happened over the last couple of years, where when I first got into Pokemon bulk, like, Safari Zone was paying $54 a thousand. I think it was like more than 5 cents per common. And so it's crazy that it's come that far down. I think it was overpriced at the time. I don't think it's that underpriced now. I think it was overpriced then, compared to $5 per thousand Magic cards and $10 to $15 per thousand Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I think you can actually get a little bit more for Yu-Gi-Oh now than you can Pokemon. So just based on the print runs, it's that they were overpriced then. And I don't want I want the games to be steady, and I want people to get the cards that they want.
What would you say? Obviously you have your numbers, but like what you're doing personally, but we won't get into that because that's not for the stream to know. But what would you say is realistic? So you want to be the Safari Zone, right? That's kind of what you want to be, is the Safari Zone for everything, right? From a revenue goal, do you have any certain stepping stones in mind that you're like, I would like to be able to net sale X amount of volume in, however much that is? What do you think truly is capable of being achieved in general profitability of, if you were to get to somewhere like them? Or just what are your kind of goals of, hey, I want to hit this kind of price point revenue wise?
So are you talking about just specifically within bulk, or
Bulk. I'm saying like, for example, just give an example, right? Let's say that I'm selling $40,000 is my current net of how much I'm currently making off of selling bulk a year, right? Mm-hmm. My long-term goal is I would like to be able to grow to Safari Zone, and my assumption is that Safari Zone sells $500,000 net in bulk. Like I guess the question is and maybe I could have reworded it better, but how realistic is it that this is something that could truly be a moneymaker? Or is there more or less a cap to where, all right, if I hit 6 figures, this is the best you could ever do? Like, how truly big of a market is this?
I think the market is both bigger than people think and smaller than people think in different ways, right? Like, the market is way bigger than people think, and it's going to get bigger over time. Trading card games have only been around for just under 30 years, right? It's only just starting to mature as a hobby. Like, all the stuff with Wizards of the Coast lately notwithstanding, it's still kind of newish as far as collectibles in general go, compared to comics or sports cards or beer cans or whatever, right? if you compare it to like sports cards, like they had a famous giant bubble crash in the early 90s in sports cards, overprinting by the bajillions, everything's going to zero, all that kind of stuff. um, the demand for those cards has caught up to those cards to that printing level now. Like the sports card boom that everything had a couple of years ago was just the icing on the cake of how much that hobby has grown in the last 20 years. And those cards aren't overprinted anymore. Like they are compared to modern sets and much older sets. They're definitely more common, but there are multiple dollar cards that didn't used to be multiple dollar cards in 1999. When the set was new, when it was brand new, they were obviously hot cards or whatever, but after the bubble crash, nothing was worth anything, and now it's back to worth money again. That's a really expansive answer, but like generally I think the market has room for a lot more mid-size players of this kind of thing than people realize. Sports cards has several huge warehouse companies that are like 40-50 million current inventory, all sold on eBay, right? It's crazy. I've seen some videos of when I started looking at sports cards of like $45 million or 45 million card warehouses out in California or Minnesota, right? I think that's the kind of thing that eventually can happen for more than just like one or two or five people. There's uh room for a lot of that, especially with new big games coming out. And we had Flesh and Blood and MetaZoo pop on the scene a couple of years ago. We've got Disney's Lorcana card game coming out next year.
I'm sorry to cut you off here. It's about to end on the timer. I'm gonna close it and I'm gonna reinvite you.
Okay.
Gotta do that. This should hopefully be the last time. Sorry about that. It's always when he's on a roll. I'm like looking at the timer as he's talking, like, all right, he's gonna get to his point, and I'm like, oh crap, we're gonna have to end it here. I don't want to end it here. But we got him there. Hopefully you guys, super interesting discussion. Yeah, I hope you guys definitely enjoy it. All right, cool. We're back. Sorry about that. That should hopefully be the last time, since we'll be pushing the 2-hour mark after it ends. But okay, going back to it. Oh, he's gone.
The sun was peeking through my curtain.
No, you're all good. So you said going back to what you were just talking about, you said there's about of a warehouse that has about 50 million sports cards, and then you said with all these other trading cards coming in, you think that that's something that could continue to happen and it's achievable. So if you want to just continue with that, just to start where we
so I think the market will have room for multiple types of businesses like that sell everything, right? And they're not, those big places, they're not just selling cheap cards, they're selling the high end stuff too. That they buy everything, they sell everything, and that's what you kind of will have to do to be at that level. But you're not going to throw away all your bulk, right? There's money there. It's if you're at the level where you can process it and you have enough people who can process it and sell it, you are at the level where you can make that money, right? And there's enough cards, what is it, 9 billion Pokemon cards got printed last year. There's enough cards to go around for that to work, and the demand is there, right? That 9 billion number that people are throwing around is not too many, right? It did drop the prices of a lot of things. A lot of, bulk did come down because there were too many for right then, but it's not too many for 10 years from now. It's not too many for the kids who will start playing 5 years from now. Pokemon isn't going anywhere, right?
No, that totally makes sense. Would you say for yourself, do you have any sort of goals that you're like, hey, I want to hit to this point as a business? I want to, whether that be financial stability, whether that be this is full time, whether that be I grow to a point of where this does itself. What kind of goals do you more or less have, and how realistic, what is your kind of roadmap plan, would you say, to hitting all those goals?
And this is this is definitely like a sandcastle thing. It's completely changing all the time. But I'm not the kind of person who wants to make a business that then just pays me money while I go and sip martinis or whatever. I'm gonna be in the business. I can't not have my hands in it. Not that I'm gonna like micromanage everybody who's doing it, but I'm gonna be involved, right? So what I would like, short, like 1 year goal, is to hire a couple of people and be stable enough to be able to hire a couple of people and keep them on. That's that goal. Like, pay myself and pay a couple of people to have the business keep flywheeling itself, right? 5 years out, I want to outgrow the space. That's a reasonable way to think of it. I think is to not fit in here anymore. I have a 2-year lease that I'm 6 months into. I'm on the way to that. So, but yeah, like right now, if I get everything I have listed, that wall back there will be covered in shelves, and I want to have another row of shelves. I want to that it's really concrete, those type of goals. I don't have a revenue number that I have in mind that is the specific number that I want to hit, because that can't possibly be the same tomorrow as it is today, right? It's too much wiggle room and stuff that I can't control to get that number and have that be a number that I'm set on. And if I hit it, I'm happy. And if I don't, I'm not. So I try not to think too much in terms of like goals like that, because even if I did say my goal is next year, I want to have $50,000 in revenue next year, and I hit 49,000, and I'm bummed I didn't make 50,000. If I hit 51,000, I'll be happy for 10 minutes, right? But I have the other goals that I have to look at moving on from that. So really, I'm a lot more trying to focus on processes that definitely make value, rather than trying to hit goals, right? And not just work towards that specific goal, because if I do, I might warp those processes in a way that isn't actually best for me or the business.
No, that totally makes sense. So a couple more questions I have for you, then I'm going to turn it over to the chat. One of the questions that I had was, I had watched, we discussed this very briefly before we started, but there was a more or less, I would say, response video. It wasn't like you were, watching his video and then responding to it, but you had more or less of a response to Danny Phantom in your personal belief of just where we are in the hobby in terms of bulk, specifically for Pokemon, right? Like I can't remember, you said 9, I can't remember if it was 9 or 6, but regardless, right? Billions of cards, everyone's like, it's overprinted, yada, yada. With that being said, and I feel like we've already kind of come to that answer, but I still might as well ask, just based off of listening to you and observing, you are of the belief that we're in a better situation than people are putting it out to be? And why do you personally think that is?
Sure. So like I said, I feel like that the numbers is a big number, obviously, and it's a bigger number than it has been before, obviously, right? Like 20% of all Pokemon cards that have been printed were printed last year, up to the end of last year, not counting this year. If you take that number, right, 9 billion, and that brought it up to I think 41 billion, if I remember the numbers right, something like that. Um, that I if it were the case that that was way super overprinted, then there would be like landfills filled with Pokemon cards, right? It wouldn't be in people's hands. They would be being used for it would be cheaper to burn them than it would be to pay for natural gas to heat your home, right? That's they would be in the landfill next to all those ET cartridges of Atari games or whatever, right? It's the the oversupply relative to the demand is just way overblown because that number is big, and the bulk prices crashed because there was more bulk out there, but it wasn't like, honestly, like, I don't think that it's terrible. I don't think we're in a bad place. I think the bulk is much more correctly valued now. I think it was more of a correction because, like I said, a couple years ago, it was $50 more per thousand for Pokemon cards. And there's not enough crosstalk between the different games. I feel like there's a lot of businesses out there that only do Magic, a lot of them that only do Pokemon, a lot of them that only do Yu-Gi-Oh, and they don't compare industry prices and data nearly as often as I feel like they ought to, which again is something that I'm trying to help people realize. It's not just a Pokemon card industry, it's a whole TCG industry. And at the same time that Pokemon was $50 per thousand, Magic was $4 per thousand. And the print levels, there were more Magic cards being printed, but there was more demand for Magic cards too than Pokemon, and there still is. And Magic bulk prices now are $4 per thousand, same as they were 2 years ago. And Pokemon prices are 10, 15, sometimes less. It just feels more like it's not like suddenly there was 10 times as much production. It's just people realizing that they were paying too much. And I feel like it's just a little more accurately priced now. And bulk is, like I said, the demand is there. The bulk isn't going anywhere. People are going to buy 5-cent cards, 10-cent cards, as long as the game is being played.
So here's an interesting question, and I'll try and wrap things up with these last couple.
Sure.
You're saying that you think now they're appropriately priced. Do you think that the market will agree with you in that regard? And potentially, could you see in the future prices for bulk continue, or could you see them rise and find their bottoming point here? Or do you think it's more likely that prices, because if I'm correct, the average price right now for market for like common and common is a penny, right?
Thereabouts.
Do you think that it's more realistic at this point to see that price go down to half a penny, a third of a penny? Or do you think at this point, we've found our bottoming point and, its potential, we could see that, price begin to increase and even go back to its 5 cents to the hyperbolic price of, everything's going to be expensive? Like where do you see the direction of the market going? Is this something that it's like, all right, we're now adjusting to the way in which things are and now we're finally at a realistic point of pricing? Or do you think that there's, this was just a small blip in what is going to be, bulk's future of prices.
So forward-looking statements being what they are, obviously. I would be really surprised if Pokemon bulk got back up to $50 per thousand again. I would be really surprised. I would be just as surprised if they dipped below $5 per thousand. I don't think that at the end of the day that a Pokemon card is worth less than a Magic card on average, random bulk. Magic has been pretty solidly steady in the sometimes 3, but usually 4 to 5 or a little bit more dollars per thousand. So that's half a penny. It's been pretty steady at that level for years and years. And I just don't think Pokemon bulk is going to dip below that. I don't think it's going to be a point where nobody wants to buy Pokemon bulk at all, right? I can see, some of the big players who have been, we will always buy bulk, that had to shut down because they bought the Falling Knife at $50 per thousand and $40 per thousand and $35 per thousand and so on. They can't buy anymore right now because they've tied up all that money. But if I were them, I would be trying to find a way to do it. As long as they have the means to churn it, I would be trying to find a way to buy it just to reduce the average cost, right? If you think about it like stocks, and a stock is worth a certain amount and it's dropping, you buy it. You buy it on the way down. You don't buy it at the top. So like if you have money, I buy up as much Pokemon bulk as you can right now. It may bounce up. I'm rambling a little bit. I'm sorry. It may bounce up a little bit, but I feel like it's never gonna. In my opinion, it's never gonna get back up to $50 per thousand. It might, if there's a big demand spike, it might jump back up to 25. I would be really surprised if it got much below 10. Just somewhat just from price memory of all the people who were buying it and selling it at 50. So
here's an interesting question. Let's say that you are Safari Zone and you just spent all this time and money on buying bulk at 5 cents a card, right? Or 50 1,000. And prices just crashed. Obviously, they've made the decision that they've made. They've closed. They're reevaluating what they're going to do in order to expend their capital. What do you think if, hypothetically, you were put in a very similar situation, you would do? Like, because with your current model, you're obviously like, buying it a penny, 2 pennies. And once it hits that 5, when someone buys it at 5, boom, you've got your floor, you've got your, price points. But for them, it's a lot different of a situation because, they don't have a floor. Or more or less they do have a floor, but they had to find that floor. And so what do you think, what do you think is going to happen more or less to a lot of these companies that are closed right now? And what is the solution for them?
Understanding again, I'm not anywhere near as big as they are, so it's speculation. They're gonna feel a lot worse dumping it at the new current price if all their 50-cent or all their 5-cent cards, dumping them at a penny to somebody else. And a lot of the other big players aren't going to buy it. They're not going to buy 2 million bulk from Safari Zone, or 10 million bulk from Safari Zone, or I don't know how much they have, but I know Danny Phantom is a little bit more forthright with his numbers. I know he took in like 1.5 million bulk, 2 Christmases ago, back when I first started getting into Pokemon. When they were just starting to get bigger into like their uh, bulk for sealed product exchange thing. So they're gonna feel bad dumping it, and it's gonna be a big time crunch to try and sell it all at retail to get closer to that number. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would do if I were them. I might dump some of it just to have the cash flow. I might spend some time and pick through it and just sell the higher end stuff. You know, I don't know if that would be the most efficient thing for them to do. It may be more efficient for them to just dump half of it and then churn the rest of it, than to try and pick through all of it to find the quarters. But it's hard to say what to do in that situation if you've overpaid for a whole bunch of bulk. Long term, if you don't need the money, then just sit on it, like sell it, retail it. It's you're gonna make it back. But if you need it short term, it's gonna feel bad dumping it, and it's gonna feel like it takes too long to churn it. So I'm not sure what would be the best solution for them in that situation.
One of the methods that I've heard people bring up, and you, I remember mentioned it very briefly, but I've heard some people sell bulk lots on TCG Player to just get rid of some of their two penny cards a lot quicker. How feasible do you really think that is?
It used to be more feasible. TCG Player is not the best venue for it. People seem to have a lot better luck with that on eBay or through some of the other selling sites like Mercari and things like that. I I I kind of philosophically disagree with selling bulk lots that way. I feel like it's doesn't add value to the cards to sell them in lots of 100, right? And you're selling them for like $8 or whatever. Which is it just seems like you're selling them the cards higher than retail on purpose just because you've taken the time to smack them together into a stack of 100. It feels somehow wrong to me, right? I don't buy them. I never bought them when I was just a player. I don't sell them because I feel like I'm taking advantage of somebody if I do. This isn't to say necessarily that other people are, or to judge people's decisions in the market. I'm not trying to do that. It's just how I feel. I don't feel like I can do it. And put the effort. It also seems like a similar amount of effort to just selling the cards at retail, right? Because I'm having to make sure that I get 5 hollows in there and 1 rare and no duplicates or whatever. So it definitely, there are definitely people who succeed at doing it, but I've heard that it's gotten a lot harder with the bulk prices crashing. It's there's less people buying those bulk lots. So I guess that's the extent of my thoughts on it.
All right, so the last question for myself, and then we'll start going into questionings from the chat. So if you've already asked a question in the chat, we're going to start from the top and go down to the bottom. And if you haven't, I highly recommend that you start dropping your questions in the chat, because we're going to go through and we're going to read the ones. We're just going to read as many as we can and try and get through. But my last question for you, for now, because there's a lot more I actually have.
I'm here.
I would say, what is your best piece of advice that you could give people that are watching this right now and are like, wow, this guy is wanting to do this for a living, or he's doing this for a living, or I want to be like this guy? What does that individual need to wrap around their head in order to get to a point where you are at, or try and just get their foot in the door in order to start their own bulk business?
Yeah. I would say probably the biggest piece of advice I could give for all of the different things I've done related to this, not just selling the cards, but also, getting enough traffic to the website that people sell cards to me in bulk, or people reach out to me, or doing things like this with YouTube. Every single one of those, the biggest piece of advice I could give is patience. Just be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. It certainly hasn't happened for me overnight. It hasn't even really technically happened for me. If I'm working all day, every day. Just it's something to be patient about. You'll see successes all the time. You'll have setbacks all the time. It's not something that you're going to list 3,000 cards. It's the first bulk that I listed. It was 3,000 Throne of Eldraine cards, the same Throne of Eldraine cards I've been going on about for a while. Some of those from that initial listing are still on my shelf, because I listed those and I sold 28 cards that next day. It's not going to happen instantly, but the effort that you put in on day one is still going to pay off on day 1,000 for whatever it is that you're doing. And this kind of thing, the effort is like compounding interest. It's not, I put in this effort and I made those 28 card sales, and that's my revenue for yesterday's effort, and that's it. I made $6 per hour on that effort. This is bull crap. I'm done. You got to be patient, because that effort that I put in on the first day, I still make money off of today. And the next day's effort, I still make money off of today. And the next day's effort, I still make money off of today. And it builds up and it slowly compounds on itself, and it becomes something that's real. And it's not just a little tiny thing that you did one day. If you can keep putting the effort in day after day on top of each, on effort on top of effort on top of effort, it all stacks up.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we're going to start jumping into questions from the chat. So if you haven't already asked it, I highly recommend that you do. But first question that we're going to ask, that's an interesting one. We'll just ask, but Pika just asked how we got to know each other. I'll actually briefly answer that one. I just DM'd him. I actually was I watched one of the videos that Cardinal posted where he discussed bulk, and he mentioned him, and your channel actually kind of blew up a little bit after that, and that's kind of how we met. So nothing too exciting, but I definitely have I would definitely say this has been one of my favorite lives that I've done. I've always been fascinated by bulk, so it's definitely something that I would love to stay in touch with and continue to do Q&As and other things with you in the future. But with that, the next question here, let's really start diving into it. And this is more of a statement, but we can easily turn this into a question. You must be pretty in tune on what the competitive cards are and what sells the best.
Me?
Yeah, that's one of the things.
I'm really not. I find out what the competitive cards are and what sells quickly, because I don't see it beforehand, but I'll have, somebody sold me 2,000 Brilliant Stars cards, and I spend a couple hours and list them all, and then the next day these 4 cards sold out. Oh, those are the important ones. I get that. Or I find out when the price for, this random Pokemon, like, Mareeps or something, are 25 cents higher than the standard baseline for all the other Pokemon in the set. That's when I find out that something is more popular. I don't know how competitive it is. I keep up with it a little bit just because it's interesting, like the highest level of play. Like I've always done that with Magic. I've done it some with Pokemon. Um, I don't understand Yu-Gi-Oh at all. So I don't keep up with Yu-Gi-Oh. Flesh and Blood, I know people who know enough about it that I can hear something if I need to, but really it's just like it's more like finding out after the fact, you know, that crushing hammers are popular or whatever. So
Question from Pika Pika. Does TCG Direct take all the same cards from all sellers and just mixes them together, or do they separate by seller? Wondering how they can check condition if they mix them in.
So the way that works is so I list what I say is, you know, I list all my cards at near mint, right? And then I get an invoice saying I have to replenish these cards. I sold, you know, they shipped off what they have already determined are near mint cards from their warehouse. Then I ship them my replenishment and they check my cards to see if they really are near mint cards. And if they are, they fill those slots back in their warehouse. And if they're not, they charge me the market price for a near mint card from some other seller and send me back my light played card or heavy played card or whatever it is.
Super Nerd Steve asks, here's a question. What are your most popular products that you sell? Is there anything you notice is trending at the moment?
I opened the own box myself.
Good job. So usually newer stuff sells fast. You know, I don't see oh, here's something like the Pokemon trick or trade cards. I don't know if you've seen those the you know, I found some marked down and opened them up with my kids and I sold off all of the ones that I opened. I have like two left out of the whole 40 package that I sold. Um, just because I think I sold complete master sets of them to two different people and then just people picking up stuff individually here and there. Just the stuff that's newest and usually sells out really quickly. And then beyond that, it's playable stuff. And then even really older than that, it's um, more collectible stuff. Like if you go back to like XY era and before, bulk from that, the price they sell slower, but the prices are a good deal higher than the bulk from say Brilliant Stars or Lost Origin. So like XY flash fires, I'll find 50 cards from that in a stack of bulk and list those, but they all are listed at 20 cents, 25 cents, 45 cents for reverse hollows, 50 cents, $1, especially if it's a trainer or it's got a character on it that people care about, or it's a more popular Pokemon. You know, the popular Pokemon aren't ever going to not be popular. So Pikachu's and Snorlaxes and Evolutions are always going to sell better.
So a little bit of a follow-up question. You said that you sold two like full-on sets to people from when you were selling the trick or trade packs. When you say that you sell, you know, full sets to people, is that just someone on TCG Player made that as an order and then just did that? Okay, that I just wanted clarification. I didn't know if you also, because on your website you accept bulk, but I didn't know if that's something where you also as well were selling cards on your site, or if people just individually messaged you about it.
No, it was I opened those trick or trade packs and I kept a play set out of it for my, or not a play set, but a master set out of it for myself just to sit on. So I think it's cool. And listed the rest of it, and it was probably 3 or 4 more complete play sets, or not play sets, but master sets. Sorry, magic terms. Uh, and 2 of the orders I got was for 1 of every card from the set, and the rest of it was like I need 3 of these Gengars or things like that. So
All right, next question we got, and this is actually a really good question. I like this one a lot. From Justin Durr, he said he wouldn't mind selling on TCG Player, but as a new seller, should I be posting high-end cards or inexpensive cards at first to build the customer review base?
Yeah, so the way TCG Player works is you have like they have like a vetting process where you level up to certain levels. I'm actually doing a video series about that now for new sellers. So check it out on my page. But yeah, at the beginning you want to sell a little bit higher end cards. Like I recommend $5 to $10 cards, nothing lower than a couple of dollars, partially because TCG Player, until you hit their highest level, level 4, won't let you do free shipping. You have to charge 99 cents shipping. You don't have the option for the dynamic shipping that they do, where if you make an order over $5, then you get free shipping. And as a result of that, that affects how your cards appear on the page. So if you sell a card for 10 cents plus a mandatory 99 cents shipping, it lines up at $1.09. It doesn't line up at 10 cents. Versus if you're level 4 and you can offer free shipping, it'll put you at 10 cents. So and they organize them by price. So really realistically, you have to be over $1.50 or so on your cards until you hit that level 4 status, which I think you have to get like 51 total delivered transactions to get to level 4. So I would recommend, a little bit higher end, not bulk at the beginning, because it just won't sell. You'll be trying to sell 5-cent cards and it'll show up as $1.05.
Pika Pika asked, who are your largest buyers per ordained? I think he meant ordained. Also, most purchases.
I mean,
most orders. He meant orders per
yeah,
orders.
I have a few buyers whose names I recognize on orders. I'm not gonna like dox them or anything, give out their full names or anything, but Mark and John, and there's a company called Krusty Games that makes commander decks that buy from me all the time, and there's a few others, and that ebbs and flows. I'll get a bunch of orders from one buyer for 2 months, and then they'll drop off, and then they'll come back and buy from me again for another couple of months. It just, I don't have like anybody buying tens of thousands of cards or dollars of cards from me or anything. I do get some people who make a $5 to $10 purchase from me every week or two.
All right, give me a sec. Just scrolling down to look up some other questions. If you, interesting question. Pokemon Department Store asks, if you were to bring someone in with you on the team, how much do you expect them to be able to bring in?
What do you
like? I assume what he means by that is when you get to a point where you like are trying to bring on another person because you can't do it yourself. What do you feel as if your efficiency point will be in order for you to like need that next person, and what are you going to expect out of them?
Right. So what I would be bringing somebody on for would either be or both to be someone who handles, it would be people who would handle those processes, right? I would need somebody who comes in and does the shipping for me, right? It handles all the orders that day while I'm doing something else. Or they come in and they sort and list cards, or they get cards ready to be listed for me, right? And I think like the biggest variable in how many cards that you sell is how many cards you list. If you don't get them on the website, nobody's going to buy them from you. So if I bring somebody on and I can double my output of cards that get listed, I should be getting close to double, or close to double the output of sales. Or it's on the order of it. It wouldn't be exactly double, obviously, but if I'm listing twice as many cards as I'm listing today, then I'm going to be selling a lot more cards. You know, a lot of them are going to be those longer tail cards, but a lot of them are going to be those cards that sell out in a day or 5 days, and we'll have we'll be able to roll into the next stack of them the next day, and so on and so on. So it would build pretty quickly. I don't have a dollar amount that I would be expecting them to be making for me. But at the point that I would be bringing somebody in, it would be to as much to free me up to do other things in the business as it would be to just have them have the return on the investment of their paycheck directly correlated to X amount of sales. There's so many other just strands of things going on that I'm dealing with too. It's not just listing and shipping. It's doing things like this and you know, writing and planning out the business and all kinds of other things.
All right, so we are running a little bit short on time here. I'm gonna quickly, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ask one last question here, and then we're probably gonna end it at that. But just so that you can make a couple of last remarks, I'm gonna just end it here and then send you one last invite. Is that cool?
Alrighty.
Cool. All right. Also, are you guys here? For some reason it says chat is disconnected, unable to connect to chat. Please try again. So I don't know what's going on here, but it says that my stream health is excellent. Okay, oh, that is bizarre. Weird. It says that the stream is healthy and excellent, but it said that it had the chat disconnected. All right, cool. He's back.
Work.
All right, cool. So, oh gosh, that's such a good question. Department store. Oh, there's so many. Okay, maybe we'll ask. What's your cutoff again? When do you have to leave?
Absolute cutoff. I have to be out of here by 2:30. So
okay, so we'll make it 2:15 then, because I have a couple of questions I want to ask you after stream as well. That are personal questions. Okay, so here, we'll do the last couple and then we're gonna wrap it up. So one of the questions is, how would you start a side hustle when it comes to selling TCG? But obviously we already answered that. So follow up to that, he asks, knowing what you know now is kind of to add a little bit of caveat to that.
So knowing what I know now, how would I start up?
Yeah, like what would you do differently now than what you did when you first started?
Trying to think about what kinds of problems I had at the beginning. I would see when I started there was very little like support for how to do the bulky side of things, right? So it was a lot of figuring out things on my own. I would get in good with the big time openers locally, the people who buy a case every set to chase, you know, these tournament staples, or they're after these particular collector cards or whatever from the set. I would find people locally who could steadily supply me with cards. Would be after I made it to level 4 or whatever, right? Because the first part is, you're digging through your personal collection for, some $2 to $10 cards you can sell. You maybe pick up a few from some other people, or you open some from a new thing. But yeah, I would get in locally with tournament grinders for Magic, and for big collectors who like to open stuff for Pokemon, and buy their bulk off of them. Let them know, hey, there's a floor for your boxes, because I'm going to give you $5 per thousand for your Magic cards, especially from a new set. That's gold, right? I'll and they open a case that's 2,000 cards that you're going to get. That's $10 for you. That's $10 that they don't have to try and make up for them, right? They're not stuck with it. It's not going into the giant box under their bed. uh Find some people you can do that with, and then start buying bulk of other rarities off of them at the same time. And let them know that they can get other people in contact with you. Network kind of locally, because you can't depend on Craigslist. You can't depend on random people on Facebook. I've gotten so many bad collections off of Facebook, a lot more good ones, but a lot of them show up to get this person's collection, and it turns out it's their 8-year-old kid's collection, and it's been chewed on by the dog. And there's a lot of great cards in there, but you can't sell a dog chewed on gold foil super rod or whatever it is. Nobody wants that. So make sure you can get a line on some quality cards, and don't overspend at the beginning. Try to let it build itself up and be patient. Don't go hard. Don't buy 500,000 cards and not have processes to deal with them. That would be a half of a mistake, I would say, that I've had, but I've learned from it so much. So I don't feel too bad.
Next question, John Doe asks, how do you best keep up on which bulk cards are becoming more competitively playable and expenses to make sure you're always sorting those to market? So more or less, these cards are playable. I gotta sort them, sell them now before, if prices make that adjustment. And then what differences have you seen in quality since Pokemon bought Millennium Print Group? That's funny.
Honestly, I don't really try and track the competitiveness unless there's something special that I'm trying to go for. I'm not picking cards out because I'm selling everything. If I come across, obvious higher end cards, like if I come across V Maxes or whatever in a stack of bulk, I'll go ahead and pull that out and list it right away. And while I'm, instead of set sorting it and waiting, 2 weeks until I get back to that set. But I'm not super hyper focused on trying to capture the competitive market today, because it's not going to be that different from the competitive market next week at my level, right? I'm not tracking, this card goes to $50 and it might be $30 next week, so I got to sell it now. I don't have $50 cards. The price variance on 16-cent cards to 12 cents isn't that big for me. I'm still making 1,000% profit if I sells at 12 cents. So I'm not too super concerned about it. What was the other part of the question? The last part?
The print quality, have you noticed it's gotten any better since Millennium Print Group?
I haven't really noticed. I haven't opened any product other than the Trick or Trade in the last few months. So I've just been looking at bulk that I've picked up off of people and from card shows and things. So I haven't noticed a whole lot of quality difference. I think the quality the quality control issues that people claim are a little overblown. There are more misprints out there, but they also printed 9 billion cards last year. So There's going to be more misprints. I think the ratio of misprints to non-misprints is probably about the same.
Last question that we have for the Q&A, and then we're officially wrapping it up. A Pokemon department store for someone that sorts cards, so like if you were to hire someone on, what do you think a fair wage would be to pay someone as a second helper?
Sure. I don't want to create a job that's not like good enough for somebody to be a job, obviously. So I would try to make it a a functional wage for somebody for their time. I I've worked in retail for a really long time before I got into hospital receptioning and then this. So I've felt the sting of poor wages for my time, and so I would try to make it as best as possible. I don't want to like settle on a number because I don't I don't know what I'll be able to offer somebody in 6 months. But I would try and be closer to that $12 to $15 range per hour, hopefully, which is better than like most of the fast food places around here and stuff like that.
Well, right
I
on.
can't be more specific than that.
Yeah, no, for sure, of course. And I wouldn't expect you to anyway. Well, I think as far as questions go, we're just going to wrap it up here. Is there any final statements you want to make? Kind of tags you want to let people to know where to follow you and go to your site, or et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, you can pretty much find me anywhere if you search up TCG Bulk Kings. You know, YouTube, obviously, Facebook, Instagram. I do more on YouTube and TikTok than anywhere else. I haven't done a whole lot on TikTok yet, but I'm just starting out there and just starting out on LinkedIn. Hopefully doing more there too. So, but definitely YouTube. That's where the bulk of my effort is. No pun intended. Um, Check me out there, and if you want to follow me in other places, I'll be sure to interact with you as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you once again so much for coming on the stream. I really appreciated it. Obviously, we're short for time here, so I have so many more questions I wanted to ask, but for what we've gotten, I hope everyone got a really good picture of what it's like to start your own bulk business, and just a lot of the important questions I feel as if you guys need to be asking yourself if this is the direction that you're wanting to go. But that is all for today's video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Going to be ending the stream here. As always, if you want to enter into our weekly giveaways, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can comment and like on each video, so that allows you for multiple entries. And then, of course, we've got 3 winners each and every week. So multiple opportunities to win. But that's all. Thank you all for watching. Until then, I will see you